So what about the future? As we look back to the capacity that we've had in New England, so the sources of energy that have been used, we are seeing a real shift. This is just an example of the capacity we've had back in 2000, comparing it to what we have had in 2010. And what we see is a real shift in capacity from oil to natural gas, and similarly on the production side, from oil to natural gas. And the point ISO New England wants to make with this is really that as we think about the future and we think about renewables and we think about environmental regulations, it's having an impact on our power system, and we're seeing a transition in our resources. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. We're also seeing a transition in what kind of resources we have. Now, as I mentioned, we are doing very well in this region in terms of demand resources. Now demand resources are actually replacing generation as capacity resources. So in addition to the kind of capacity that we have, we also see that the demand side of the market is getting active to provide capacity. And as we think about what else is going on in our industry, the states have very aggressive renewable portfolio standards. This is just a snapshot of the standards in each state. Thanks, Jed. We estimate that we're looking to a requirement of 30% into the future, and that's going to be difficult to achieve. We do have interest from the development community in terms of renewables. This basically shows the kind of generator proposals that are in our pipeline that we're studying for interconnection. And for the most part, it's natural gas, more natural gas, and it's wind generation. Again, this is just a snapshot of the types of renewables. And again, wind seems to be the most promising utility scale renewable for New England. We did a study for the New England governors that basically was consistent with what we see in the pipeline. The green areas that you see in this chart are the wind-rich areas in New England. And this is where, if we're going to develop some of that wind and bring it to customers, where it's located. And so it's a bit of a challenge because it's not located where the transmission system is. Also noted on this chart is some of the older fossil generators, particularly the oil generators. And the point here is to make is that when we look ahead to the future resources that we're going to need to rely on and that policymakers want, they're in very different locations than where existing resources are today. But we do see transmission companies also very interested in developing transmission to deliver those wind resources to customers. So that, in terms of the horizon, we talked about transmission for reliable operations and baseline infrastructure. I think what we're looking ahead to now and what the region is grappling with is how to, if there's going to be transmission for other purposes, how do we deal with developing that? What kind of a framework do you need? I know Heather's going to talk a lot about that. I just want to end, actually not end, I need to do my consumer liaison group. Sorry.
I would have reminded you.
I just want to end, so, I think the message is that we've made a lot of progress. The region has working together. It's not perfect. And we have challenges coming at us. Challenges in the form of how do we deal with some of the older resources that are on the system that are likely to retire? How do we plan for that? How do we deal with the integration of wind to meet renewable portfolio standards? So we've launched a strategic planning initiative. Those are just a couple of the challenges that we face, but we feel we need to be ready as a region, as the ISO responsible for planning. We really want to start to have the discussions about what kind of planning process do we need to have, what kind of market design do we need to have to make sure there's a transition from these older resources to the newer resources. I know Angie's going to talk about that later on the next panel. The Consumer Liaison Group, which is the reason why I was supposed to be here, right, Jen? No. A couple of years ago, consumer representatives and consumer advocates were making the point to ISO New England that consumers need to understand what's going on in the wholesale markets, because they need to have the knowledge, they need to weigh in, they need to have their consumer voice as part of the discussion, and we agreed. And so there was a lot of discussion around it. We formed the Consumer Liaison Group, which is a group that meets quarterly. And the idea is to bring the group up to kind of a baseline knowledge on the wholesale markets, and to begin to have them weigh in on what's going on in these markets, whether it be transmission development or changes to market design that could impact costs. And so we've been doing it for 2 years now. I think we've had a great start and built a lot of information and knowledge on a variety of different topics. And one topic in particular I want to hit on, just so it's clear, you know, there seems to be a little bit of a disconnect between wholesale and retail. And so what I've talked about is wholesale, and there's a set of retail markets that govern the ultimate rates that retail customers will see. And so we've had some good discussions, and we've provided some good information on that topic. So we have a dedicated website on the ISO website that is really a library of all the information that we've provided. So in addition to having these meetings and having people come and hear about this information, we want chances to get out and have opportunities to talk with groups like this about the wholesale market. So I really do appreciate Cindy allowing us to do that. And I would, if folks are interested, they can go to the web page, and they can look at what we've done so far. We've tried to put the information into a high-level context that's understandable without going through all the nuts and bolts of the markets, because that's fairly complicated. One thing we're doing that's a new item is ISO New England will be providing impact analysis on all of its major initiatives. This was something that consumers asked for, and so we have developed a framework for that. And so the concept is to provide consumers and consumer groups with information about new initiatives in terms of costs and impacts, so that if they do want to weigh in with the ISO, and they do want to weigh in with their Attorney General's office, they have the ability to do that more easily. They have the information about what does it mean to consumers. So we just started that, and we'll be continuing to work with Jed and others moving forward. Thank you very much.